to our webinar today. Today's webinar is on family participation, a topic that we haven't touched much on in the last few years. So I'm really excited about this topic, and I'm glad that we're bringing some light to it. And from the feedback that we got in the registration, it sounded like a lot of people were eager and anxious to hear about this topic. So I'm pleased that we're able to deliver this. Just a brief orientation to webinars for people who haven't worked with them before. Due to the volume of participants, we do have to keep the lines muted, but we do want to make this as interactive as possible. So please feel free to ask questions via the chat function on the webinar control panel. During the webinar, you may experience some momentary lapses in the audio. This is normal, and it should not interfere with the overall content of the presentation. We will be archiving this webinar. We'll be recording it and archiving it. So what we'll do is we'll send you the link. So if you really have some serious problems with the audio, you'll be able to hear it that way. We also will post this webinar up on YouTube with all of our other archived webinars that we have up there. If you are interested in that, I can send the link out to folks via email later. You can also go on YouTube and type in NYS Consumer Affairs, all one word, and that should bring up our web page that's got all of our webinars on there. You can please feel free to share this link with anyone else. We want to get as many people up to date as possible. We currently have 70 people on the webinar right now, which is a good number. We'll probably be getting some more as the webinar comes in for people who are on mental health time. When the webinar ends, you will receive a short survey. If you could please take the time to fill it out. And for people who are still waiting for certificates, we do plan on giving certificates out to people who attend our webinars, and we will send out certificates via email for this webinar. We're just very, very behind, and I am very, very sorry about that. But we do have some support staff that will be joining us soon, and they should be able to help us get all caught up to date on sending out the certificates. If people are sharing a computer to view the webinar, if you could please list all the people requesting a certificate, and they will all be sent as attachments to you in one email. So our speaker today is Judith Carrington, and she's the founder of Mental Health Resources. And I remember when I first met Judith, she was at one of our regional advisory committee meetings, and she was at that time developing the Family Survival Toolkit, and she had given it to us to give her some feedback on it so it would be as strong as possible. And we do really appreciate that she was looking for the feedback to make it a good product. Judith is a dedicated advocate. She's doing a lot to help the families and the recipients have a more productive and smoother time when they first come into contact with the mental health system. I know that for a lot of families, when they first come in, it's a very big, scary system. And Judith has developed a lot of good resources to help make that a much smoother process to educate families. So without further ado, I turn it over to you, Judith.
Oh, thank you, Tony.
1 second here. I'm gonna switch the mic over to you, so people will be able to hear it. All right. There we go. You should be good. All righty. Excuse us for the technical problems. There we go.
Well, welcome to all of you who are tuning in. I can't see you, but you can see me, and at the end, I want to hear from you. So there I am. All right, but more than that, who am I? Well, I'm the mom of a daughter with a couple of diagnoses. I'm a family peer coach and founder of Mental Health Resources. I'm chair of NAMI New York City Media and Advocacy Group. I'm the initiator and primary author of the OMH NAMI New York State Family Institute for Education, Practice, and Research sponsored Family Toolkit. And I'm a member of the Regional Advocacy Committee, New York State Office of Mental Health, and former 14-year principal of a public relations marketing firm. And I have a mission. It is universal mental health education with officially sanctioned peer materials for family and recipients from the moment of entry into the mental health system. How did I get here? Well, because of lack of any educational or support materials for me as a family member during my daughter's 4 hospitalizations. Now I'm going to read a recent Psychiatric Services article quote because I want to show how mental health authorities and the professional trade groups are aware and supporting of families. Now, why wouldn't they want the following? Listen up. Family education, family consultation, and family involvement in treatment is identified with medication adherence, consumer empowerment, family empowerment, consumer knowledge about psychiatric illness, treatment and resources, consumer recovery orientation, family support, and family coping. Over 30 randomized clinical trials demonstrated that psychoeducation programs reduce relapse, improve symptomatic recovery, and enhance psychosocial and family outcomes. And this is across the board, whether we're talking about schizophrenia, bipolar, etc. Sounds like something we all need and want. But are we upholding mental health authority and professional trade group recommended practices to include families? And what are those recommended practices? Let's start number one, ongoing support programs. This is part of the OMH official policy manual. Number two, education and information opportunities as partners in treatment. Again, from the OMH official policy manual. Number three, interventions for families include education, problem solving, and communication to reduce symptom relapse and contribute to improved patient functioning and family well-being. That's from the American Psychiatric Association practice guidelines. And secondly, what does family involvement mean? Well, involved in treatment, quote, to be involved in the treatment process to the greatest extent possible. That's the APA. Second, involved without consent, quote, when done in such a way as not to compromise or reveal information that should be kept between the therapist and patient. Family involvement can be accomplished without obtaining the express permission of the patient and without violating confidentiality. Now, I've been asked, what does that mean? What can you talk about that doesn't violate confidentiality? Well, think about it. There's plenty of background information, insights and observations from family, information about programs, plans for discharge. This is taken from the OMH pamphlet, When Families Join the Mental Health Care Team, Everyone Benefits. I can promise you these are the words of John Torriello, who has been their many-decade counsel. Now, thirdly, what does family involvement mean? It means involved with discharge planning. Quote, it starts, the first day of admission, family is included, and in all aspects of the plan, it is in accordance with a written service plan. So families need to be involved because they're integrally affected by what happens the day, the last hospital stay. Okay, then you have to ask the question, okay, what is expected of families, and are they equipped to deliver it? They're expected to monitor symptoms, help with medication management, obtain adequate community resources, provide financial support, provide logistical organization, and let's face it, always to be on duty as an RN, an MD, a case manager, an intensive case manager, whatever. And they have to have enough understanding of the mental health system to be an effective member of the treatment recovery team. Well, are families accessing those privileges and recommended practices to do this job? The answer, according to surveys that I conduct at the end of frequent presentations and workshops, is no, they are not. Now, it's not for the lack of trying. We have a huge debt to OMH. They have provided considerable policy and reimbursement support over the last decade. They have really put their money where their mouth is. Let's take a look at these supportive areas. Number one, the intensive rehabilitation component in comprehensive PROS reimburses for family psychoeducation. However, as an example, the family psychosocial facilitator for the consumer on Hands Across Long Island confirmed with me that there's very low participation for consumer referral to families from their veteran demographic. We need to do better. PROS people need to do better. Now, secondly, ACT teams, as part of support services, are required to give support education and skill teaching to family members. However, the testimony from families I've interviewed who are using ACT teams show that the quality of service and outcome is directly related to the degree to which the family takes the leadership position to report and work with the team. So giving self-help materials to these families could encourage that communication. And the third huge support that OMH has given us is family consultation, which offers, with consumer referral, the possibility of a maximum of 3 family meetings. OMH is pioneering and funding this through the Rochester University's Family Institute for Education, Practice, and Research, which is training providers statewide to work with families. However, there has been a disappointing response for this consultation, according to the senior program manager at FEGS and some other folks I've spoken with. So in spite of OMH support, family participation is not where we would want it to be. It needs to reach families, but they're very early, but there are barriers. Families, let's face it, in the mental health system are most impressionable, trainable, and motivated very early. Right now, there are no self-help overview materials designed to support this target market of families as they venture into a new world and face a future of challenges with the family member. Now, some of the barriers, the veteran consumers, a long time in the system, they often lose bonds with families. Consumers can feel they know what they need to know, or perhaps they don't want the family aware there's a substance abuse issue. Oftentimes, families are geographically distant, and I'll just give you an example. When I spoke to the Bridge, they encourage family involvement among their 1,000 veteran consumers, but only 20 families, or 2%, are currently involved. All right, now I'm going to get personal. So how did I get to this mission? And how did these materials get written? First of all, this is not on your PowerPoint, but I nearly went under when my daughter became severely mentally ill. I came home from Asia, couldn't find her. I sat on her doorstep and I said, I'm not moving until somebody tells me, where is my daughter? And somebody was a doctor, and he said, she's in Bellevue. I ran across the street, and there she was lying on the floor like a dog. She wouldn't get up. I didn't know what to think. I said, you know, I don't understand. What's wrong with her? I don't know how to talk to her, what to do with the hospital. What am I supposed to do? And although I've had my challenges in life, I lost my father and husband to alcohol. My son's been in jail 3 times. Nothing prepared me for this. This was off the charts for me. So after nearly collapsing, I decided to dig in and have a learning curve, that would be my way out of my misery. So in my research, I learned about something called the PORT study, Patient Outcome Research Team, and it was a longitudinal study that identified for the first time 6 evidence-based practices for the treatment of schizophrenia, and one of them was family psychoeducation. And I was so excited. I said, according to this study, you can reduce relapse rates by way over half. Why aren't we doing it? I got very excited. So that's how I got into this education business. The other way I got in was when she was in one of the facilities. I just felt I didn't understand what the quid pro quo was. I was paying privately, which I couldn't afford, and I couldn't see exactly how the services matched up with my daughter getting better. So I wrote a 6-point complaint with 6 solutions. And I used the regulations of OMH to base my arguments. And because nobody could refute me, I ended up skipping a $12,500 bill. But I still didn't get the services. But I learned the power of the regulations. That's why I wrote these materials. The handbook, I wanted to know what I needed to know during and after the hospital. For the rights pamphlet, I want to know exactly how I'm allowed to be involved and what is my job. In terms of the HIPAA and confidentiality law booklet, I want to know, is it being used as a red herring, which I suspected, and it is absolutely the case. OMH authored that wonderful booklet, by the way. It's very reader-friendly. And then, since the toolkit, I have written a summary pamphlet and briefing paper, which coalesces a lot of the material in this 54-page handbook. So that question I wanted to ask myself was, how can this all be said in a very concise way? Try one piece of paper. Now, I felt that turnkey, cost-time effective, in the public domain, family toolkit could come to the rescue. Now let me talk a little bit about, gosh, you probably know more than you need to know, but the handbook's 54 pages. It's also a workbook. It's how-to reader-friendly. The workbook part includes tools you can use, a hospital checklist, and these checklists are designed to capture crucial information while you're in the hospital, because families don't often know what to ask, and this form will make sure you ask all the right questions. And the second part of the workbook is a management law sheet. So when you go to meetings, you keep a chronological list of everything that transpires to provide a monitoring system for your decision making. And these also, I hope you don't, but if you need to make a complaint, you've got your date, the time, who said what, etc. And the third piece in the workbook is a little controversial, but it's called the family contract, or you could call it the family agreement. Creating and agreeing on a set of house rules before your loved one leaves the hospital makes very clear what each party pledges to do and includes specific consequences for breaking it. And the optimal time to do that is in the hospital, in my opinion. In my case, I had both the daughter and her social worker sign it. Because I think if you don't get, if you're going to, as a family member, give them a place to live and make sure their needs are met, they need to agree to take their meds, report early warning signs. They need to know up front what is the quid pro quo. Now, these are a gift. Let's not forget it, from OMH, who designed, printed, put them through legal department, and has distributed them statewide through an electronic letter, and here I am being supported by them further with this webinar. The last piece of literature which you don't have is a one-page summary pamphlet with key points and a briefing sheet, which any mental health professional could review the key points of family participation in recovery with a family member in a matter of minutes. Try between 10 and 15 minutes and one piece of paper. You'll see at the end, you can email me for a copy. I'll send it to anybody who wants a copy, along with the briefing sheet that makes it nitwit simple to go over. Okay, so what's the family toolkit approach? It's information, advocacy tools, self-help, peer sharing. Secondly, the toolkit approach is tell families straight what their job is for recovery, how to do the job, and how the family member depends on their family to partner and cheerlead them on. Thirdly, families learn about and exercise their rights to be informed members of the treatment recovery team. I just want to say, families are accused of being invasive, hysterical, and a pain in the neck, and nobody's paid to talk to them. It's all true. Why are they that way? Because they're uninformed and they don't know what to think. Just reflect back on the picture of me going to Bellevue, looking at my daughter on the floor like as I say, a dog. I mean, it's the most horrific thing, and they're not in the best shape. Well, I keep talking about the treatment team / recovery team. What makes a treatment team also a recovery team? First of all, the family member identifies their goals and strengths and understands them as essential touchstones to the recovery, which is their right. Secondly, the family member and the family acknowledge that the majority of challenges occur outside and beyond the scope of traditional healthcare settings, but in the context of the person's rehabilitation in everyday life in the community. And these are addressed by such recovery approaches as coaching, mentoring, and peer support. Now, let's just go through what's in the very short pamphlet. How are we going to appeal to families? So we ask families, do you have a family member who's struggling in or after the hospital? Do you know that they can get better? And do you know your support can help them the most to get them better? And do you want to know how? Secondly, you show the families how they count. You point out that science shows that families can make their member get better with the right supports. Medications get rid of the most obvious part of the sickness, and that's the thought disturbance disorder, hearing voices, the so-called negative symptoms. But medications almost always don't help the other part of the sickness. Now we're talking about poor motivation, an initiative, inability to express emotions, feel pleasure. That's what we call positive symptoms. So dealing with this second part of the sickness is what will help build your family member an independent life, a place in the community, a home, and a job. And this is where families come in, working to find those right supports and resources. Thirdly, you got to cheerlead them. You got to tell those families they got a job to do. Don't give up. Join the team. And you got to tell them to come up to speed on available mental health issues and resources. You have to do it to become effective on the team and a future advocate for your family. Remember, you've got to know your stuff. And as soon as your loved one becomes more steady, you got to let your family member know that their job is to define and work hard towards their definition of recovery. You got to let them know that their recovery is their right. Now, fourthly, families need the 7 right supports. Obviously, the first is to get in touch with NAMI, because they have a family-to-family education course that's non-parental, and they have support groups, and they need to get a copy of the toolkit. NAMI can help you download it. Secondly, you must ask for family consultation and services from the Family Institute for Education, Practice, and Research, and learn about family offerings as well as to get individual support. Third right support is see that your family member takes their medications. Fourthly, see that your family member goes to any follow-up meetings. And fifth, let your doctor, social worker, case manager know if your family member isn't feeling well in order to prevent future hospitalizations. And not feeling well means having stress, you can't concentrate, withdrawn, lost interest in what they used to like. Those are not good signs. Okay. Let's see here. 1 second long. There it is. There it is. Hold on one sec. Okay. All right. So I wonder if I think I have to go back one. Sorry.
That's okay.
I think I've got one more. Okay, so just to wrap up on the 7 right supports. 6th is while your family member is mending on medications, go slow, just tune down, be warm and caring, but give them space, set limits, and establish rules, but just, if you can't change it, keep it simple, don't worry about it. Follow the treatment plan and carry on business as usual. Take care of yourself and others so you can be there for each other. And then lastly, and this is very important, nobody ever helped me at all with what I call stages of grief, but you need to understand, families need to understand and take into account, and they need to be told that they go through 5 stages of feeling bad about their family members' difficulties. First, they feel shock and denial. Secondly, they get very angry. Why does this have to happen to me? Who can I blame? I hate the system, I hate the sickness, I hate the person, I hate the system, I hate, I'm mad. Thirdly, oh, well, you bargain. Maybe there's a miracle cure. Maybe I could hire some magical doctor. And fourth, you begin to feel guilt. Oh, dear, maybe I have some regrets. That's a little bit like depression. And then finally, you reach some acceptance at some level so that your family member's struggle doesn't take over your life and thought. Now, if only families were told about this, they shouldn't be the last to know what their crazy behavior is about, and they could possibly temper it, and it would be a great relief to them to be so informed. I don't think anybody informed me. Okay. Lastly, the toolkit approach is cheerlead. Tell families the good news. Success can be in their hands. Mental illness can happen to any one of us. It's nobody's fault. There's no one to blame. And science proves that informed family support combined with medication, therapy, and support services brings the best success for your family to build a life. Again, a life is a place in the community, a home, and a job. That's what we're aiming for. And extensive longitudinal studies nationally and internationally prove that the majority suffering from severe mental illness become symptom-free over time. It may take a long time, but it happens. This is not, for the majority, a lifetime sentence. So why are these peer-authored materials for both family and consumers? Let's look 13 years ago at the 99 Surgeon General's Mental Health Report, where it points out that since the 1970s, the mental health services continue to be transformed by the growing influence of consumer and family organizations. Through strong advocacy, consumer organizations have gained a voice in legislative and policy for mental health service delivery. Organizations representing consumers and families, though divergent in their historical origins and philosophy, have developed and share overlapping goals. And those are overcoming stigma, preventing discrimination, promoting self-help groups, promoting recovery from mental illnesses, and I would add, getting benefits, housing, and employment. And what's more, both the families and the consumers, they have codified how we want to participate in the mental health system and how we want to promote change. We've each written a sort of testimonial piece of material, the toolkit for us families, and the white paper for consumers. Now, why are these peer-authored materials that we're talking about a boon for providers? Well, I know this is sounding repetitious, but it's important to say it. Informed families can be providers' most useful allies and contribute to better outcomes for everyone involved. They play an important role as recovery team members. And let's not forget the second goal of Michael Hogan's 03 New Freedom Commission report. He wants consumer and family-driven mental health care involving consumers and families fully in orienting the mental health system toward recovery. So providers, you need to remember we're on the team. Now, if families are equipped with information, then they can become effective, but they must be educated about the illness, its effect on them and their loved one, how to deal with these effects, how to navigate the mental health system, how to access benefits and services needed for their loved one to build a new life. Families can absolutely lighten the provider's load. Family involvement, as mentioned, has been identified with medication adherence, consumer and family empowerment, consumer knowledge about psychiatric illnesses, treatment and resources, and consumer recovery orientation, family support, and family coping. Okay, just to give you a glimpse of where these materials are currently being considered and used. They were well received before 40 psychiatrists at the Beth Israel Grand Rounds, given out in Beth Israel's CP, whether ER unit, and in their in- and outpatient units. We're very excited about that. They've been given out at Psychiatric Institute's in- and outpatient units. They were subject of a PROS teleconference. Health and Hospitals Corp is reviewing for their various 13 hospitals, and it triggered family nights. It was presented to the psychiatrists at New York State Psychiatric. NAMI New York State distributed to several thousand affiliates statewide. The handbook is included in all ongoing NAMI New York State Family to Family materials. It was addressed to residents at Beth Israel's Family Center for Bipolar Disorder. It's being used as curriculum at family programs, Capital District Psychiatric and South Beach Psychiatric. And I'm most excited, St. Luke's Roosevelt is also considering distribution in ER and in an outpatient as a routine part of care. That's what they look at it as an absolutely routine part of their care. And I'm going to be presenting to 4 of their units. And then lastly, it's been presented at some agencies, including South Bronx Mental Health Council and the Bridge, and there's discussions underway with Community Access and Payne Whitney. So we're getting out there. All right, who are some of the folks that have endorsed these materials? Well, Commissioner, New York State Office of Mental Health, the Director of Psychiatric Institute, the Executive Vice Chairman of the Board, New York Presbyterian, that's Herb Pardes, Psychiatric Nurse Leadership at Coney Island Hospital, and heads of assorted NAMI affiliates and psychiatric centers. Well, we need to look for a second here at the statistics. These were given to me by OMH, Medicare. They show that 34% are rehospitalized within 90 days. Now, that is obscene. 65% don't keep their first scheduled appointments. Well, then it's downhill ever after. If they don't go to the first, they're not going to go to any others. 75% are non-adherent to medication. And budgets are getting slashed. We've got to do more with less. So what are some action steps? And I know that I have a high percent of NAMI members and others are not mental health providers, but I'm tilting a little toward the providers when I speak right now. First of all, at the very least, give families the summarizing pamphlet using the briefing paper. Take 15 minutes to discuss how families count, how to use the set of right supports, What are the stages of grief? Families, we need to be extremely direct with them. You have a job to do, and we're depending on you, and so is your loved one's recovery. Secondly, of course, you can make copies of the toolkit available. All of this has to be at earliest entry into the system. Or you can provide the link to download. More and more units, for instance, at St. Luke's, are having computers right on the unit, which I think is terrific. Thirdly, you can invite the family onto the recovery treatment team, reminding them that illness can happen to anyone and there's no fault or blame. You can let families know about NAMI support groups, their signature education courses, and their advocacy activities. And then, of course, you can retain me to explain how to work with the self-help materials and to give presentations or coaching. 6 ways that I can help families. You can consider referrals to me because I give family peer support and a rationale for hope. Family members get very burned out, discouraged, and dispirited when there's no movement, and sometimes there isn't much. So making them aware of the improved probabilities, strategies, and paths to recovery can energize them. I've seen it happen. I also train families to be effective members of the treatment recovery team by advocating for their privileges as laid out and as we've been discussing. And I also help make self-monitoring tools available. I link them with peer counselors and bridges. I provide nitty-gritty information and support material that mental health providers just don't have time to do. You know, I help them go on Craigslist and find an apartment for cheap or whatever they need. I meet them wherever they're at. And then, of course, support and cheerlead recovery, strength-based, person-centered care. There's so much discouragement. People really have many families sinking feeling that things are never going to get better. All right, well, you guys have the toolkit, but the easiest way to download it is on NAMI's New York State's homepage, because it's right there in the left hand. You just scroll down. If you want my pamphlet and briefing paper, there's my website. I've got 2 of them, MHresources at NYC. Oh, I forgot the RR, guys. Roadrunner, RR.com. I goofed. jcarrington1 at nyc.rr.com also works. So why not help families help you? That's my question. And now it's time to hear questions from you. I have 10 questions that came over emails, which I can also address depending on what you want to do. But I just throw out a couple, four questions. How do you see the potential for families to improve outcomes and help providers do their job? How could the education information exchange described in this webinar happen more widely? Could you spare 15 minutes in a 1-page pamphlet and a briefing sheet per family member? Could you do that? Could you support families with referrals to me? Others, over to you. So you can also email me. We can continue the dialogue anytime you like. Thank you so much for your consideration. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Judith. At this time, anyone wants to use the chat function to send in some questions for Judith, we'd be happy to answer them. I do have one right now. A person is asking how relevant are these resources to the children's mental health system?
Well, that's a good one. The children's mental health system. I mean, what the emphasis OMH and up at Psychiatric Institute's think tank is early intervention. They're trying to avoid that break, which is very bad for the brain. So any education on mental illness and signs of mental illness at any age, I had loads of what they call prodromal signs. My daughter, she was a toddler, she'd be banging her head on the kitchen floor, and my friends would look at me like, what's wrong with her? I didn't want to believe anything was wrong with my daughter, neither did my pediatrician. We got to become more aware at young ages.
Excuse me. So yes, we have another question here, but before I get to that one, I want to set it up a little bit. So, and I think you talked about it a little bit as well. So one of the things that you said, and that I also hear from recipients themselves, is when there is a first break and when this first starts to happen, you said families don't understand what's happening, and the person themselves who it's happening to, we don't understand what's happening. And it's a very confusing time. And when we first come into contact with the mental health system, there's an imprinting that can happen. You know, you're looking for answers. You're trying to find some kind of context or pattern or framework to put this very unusual and confusing experience into some kind of context. And you know, providers do more or less of a good or poor job in engaging the families and engaging the people at that first time. It's such a critical component because it can really direct the future trajectory of the person's and the family's recovery process. So with that, with that framework, I want to give this question to you. So how do you see the role of family in outpatient mental health treatment, and what might be the best ways to engage family members in this setting?
Well, again, I don't ask providers, mental health professionals, to care about families or even take time or empathize that much with them. I'm not even asking for that. I'm asking that you give them information. Throw paper at them. Because, once they realize that they make a difference and that what they do, that they have a very specific job, I think they'll all bite the bullet and educate themselves to some degree. I'm not asking for more than that. I don't know if that answers the question. Tell me what I didn't.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. I was looking at some of the other questions to try and get them. But yeah, it can be, just so you know, it can be a little awkward because you don't get the direct feedback when we ask these questions. So I'm sure it was fine. So next question is, I can't agree more with the use of stages of grief as a way to validate family members' experiences. However, service professionals do not recognize grief reactions in family members. Are you aware of any resource for professionals in understanding family bereavement and grief reactions? This is an issue that is not adequately addressed in current mental health literature.
Oh boy, I wish I knew of some. Do you think OMH might pick up that issue?
I can certainly bring it back to OMH. Is there anything in the SAMHSA family psychoeducation around that? I'm not that familiar with that.
Well, Harriet Leffley was a pioneer in that area, and there's a lot of literature on it. But I mean, to me, I just remember getting a piece of rumpled paper, and it said 5 stages of grief, and I grabbed that paper. I said, oh, that's what I'm going through, and that was just by chance. I don't think you need to make this a complicated seminar. I think you need to tell people they're going to be very crazed and dazed. And this is pure Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, which was developed by her to find how people deal with death and loss. Because it's a loss, and it is a form of death. So all the literature for Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, all that stuff is directly applicable.
Okay. Next question is, I would like to fill out the history of my son on the toolkit. I have talked to his ACTS team, and they tell me that I only have permission to talk to his doctors and social workers, but I do not have permission to his medical correctors. Is there a way I can get them, because he will not give me permission?
Hold on a second. Just let me think about that. Are you saying that you're told that you can't speak with your son's psychiatrist? Is that what you're saying?
It's saying that the person has permission and permission to talk to the doctor and the psychiatrist, but that they do not have permission for his medical records.
Oh, that you're not entitled to your son's medical records. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Oh, no problem. He's out of the hospital, right?
Whatever.
If he's in the hospital, yeah, okay. All you had to do is type a letter with your son's name and request his medical records. They'll send them directly to your son. I recommend that before people leave the hospital, I just used to say to my daughter, up there, dear, would you just sign this piece of paper? And right as we leave the hospital, we go to the window and we get the records. Everybody's entitled to those records. You cannot be deprived of them.
Yeah, I think that isn't it Jonathan's law that allows qualified individuals access to the medical records?
Yep.
I believe that's fairly recent, within the last 4 or 5 years or so. So that is possible. I would also, you know, I would encourage the family members to have a discussion with their loved one if they were planning on doing something like that, because it could.
That can be reinforced by the hospital treatment team.
Yeah.
So it's an informed decision that your loved one's making.
Yeah. Alrighty. Let's see. Oh, there's someone who's saying that there are many resources in regards to the stages of grief. They're saying that from the original McFarlane, and that's McFarlane, McFarlane psych model.
Yep.
Or psych ed model.
Yeah, that's called, that's the evidence-based psychoeducation model. Multi-family group.
Excellent. So if we can find, if there's any documents like that we can find within the next week or so, we can send that out to people via the email. And just for people, so people are aware, we did send out to everyone who registered today, we sent out a copy of the PowerPoint, the HIPAA the HIPAA pamphlet for families, the family toolkit, of course, and the brochure on when families help. So we sent all that out today. We'll send it out again for people who may have registered late and didn't get it. So we'll send that out again to everybody who is here today.
The handbook is in PDF format and is downloadable. It's printable, and it is available in hard copy through NAMI New York State.
Now that person talking is Tom O'Clair. He's with us today. Tom O'Clair is my counterpart at the Office of Mental Health, and he is the family advocacy specialist for the state. All right, another question here is, what about when the consumer absolutely refuses to have the family members participate or be involved in any way?
Well, that's difficult. I don't know how old this person is. If they're in adulthood, there's not much you can do. If they're a minor, obviously, there are things you can
Right, and
enforce.
we do want to help a person who has had a break realize that their family has made observations that may be essential to their recovery, to their treatment, and bear that in mind, and hopefully allow a certain amount of communication at least between the provider and the family member. Although there is truly nothing preventing the family member from sharing their concerns with a physician, the physician cannot share information back without permission of the patient. But the family member absolutely has the ability and the right to share their concerns.
Okay, my screen went off here, so just give me a second. Right on cue. As we're talking about privacy, that's one of the reasons why they do this. There we go. All right. Next question. So why do you think mental health systems have been so slow to adopt the recommended changes, despite the strong evidence base that exists regarding the value of family involvement?
Oh my goodness. This top attending physician at St. Luke's asked me the same question. I don't know, maybe why they don't see the importance of family who could really help them. That's a puzzlement. I don't know.
Well, I think, if you don't mind my observation,
yes.
I think that you hit on it earlier, and forgive me if I offended anyone, but you said that families can be
hysterical, invasive, and a pain in the neck.
Correct. They can be. So treatment teams, I don't think, I think sometimes treatment teams or the mental health system isn't overly eager to work with families. It's time consuming.
Yes.
And people are, the process of recovery and the process of working with people and engaging families is messy and time consuming. And, given the limited amount of time that social workers have, they generally try to focus that on the individual patient. So I think that's part of it. And then you had mentioned, and I want to tie this together, because you had also mentioned that there's a lot of anger in one of the stages, and there are a lot of emotions, including anger, when this happens. And I think that through resources like the Family Toolkit and NAMI and other family resources to channel that anger in a way and that emotion in a way that is actually beneficial and helpful to the treatment team. When a family is able to show how they can be helpful to the treatment team, I think they're much more likely to engage with them and work with them.
Well, Tony, also I'm very humble in my advocacy and in my requests. I don't ask for providers to sympathize or want to spend time. I'm saying at least shove some paper in their direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's all I'm asking for.
And if I may interject as well, we become very protective of our own. So as a parent, as a loved one of somebody who is stricken with any illness, we become very protective and try to help them out by doing what we think is best for them and don't always consider their wishes or their input. Unfortunately, it can come down to human nature. And that can muddy up the waters in moving toward cooperation and recovery.
Well, that's why I advocate being almost harsh with families. They're in a terrible, blurry state of confusion and upset. But I don't care. There's no time to sweeten the message. The message is you have a job. Your loved one's counting on you. This is how you come up to speed. You got a lot of homework. Sooner you get going, the better. Don't make it a light matter. They're entering into a very difficult situation, and nobody ever tells them that.
And I also do want to interject another point here. We also need to consider family of choice. We realize that there are people who may not have blood relatives or maybe have been in the social services system growing up and so forth, and don't have what would conventionally be identified as family members, but their family of choice, their best friend, their companions. Those are family without legal connection, but they are their family. They are that person's support system. We need to keep those people in mind and allow them as well to provide input.
Okay, so we've got another question here. It says, you said that family members, and I'm assuming this is coming from a provider. So it said, you said that family members can be included in discharge planning information even when there is no signed release of information allowing the staff to speak with the patient's family. I thought that unless there is a signed release, I cannot even acknowledge that the patient is in our care. How would we share information without a release signed by the patient?
Well, I refer you to the pamphlet which Tony sent you, A Word About Confidentiality, and I refer you to the HIPAA booklet. Why am I doing that? First of all, in the pamphlet was written by John Torriello, who is the chief counsel here at the New York State Office of Mental Health, and the pamphlet is very well done because it demystifies a lot of the complexities of the HIPAA law from both the vantage point of the provider and of the end user. So I'd rather you looked at the law that way than me give you a lecture on the ambiguities of it. I do want to say, though, that HIPAA is a bit of a red herring because the state hygiene law, which is mandatable, is much more stringent than the HIPAA law by a long shot. This whole HIPAA thing has been, I really do think it's a bit of a red herring. It's been used as a dodge to avoid families to some degree.
Now, we did send out the HIPAA booklet for families that's specifically tailored to families. So we sent that out earlier. If people are interested in the type of training, HIPAA training and information security training that the Office of Mental Health gives, you can actually access that information through the NICE website, and that's NYESS. That's www.nyess.gov. hipaa.ny.gov. And go where it says, there's a link on the left-hand side that says Archive Trainings, and you can actually view all of the HIPAA material that we give to every single OMH person that is required to take this training. So we happen to have it up online for the NICE project, but there's nothing that says you aren't able to view it as well. So feel free to look at that if you're interested. All right, so next question. I'm not sure. Well, let me just read it. So how are OMH invested, related, or connected? If a person is a vested client, are they also then certified for other services in the OMH domain? So I'm not sure how that relates to the topic, but I can field that one if you prefer. OMH invested or vested falls Access VR falls under state ed. So OMH is a state agency. State ed is a state agency. Access VR invested, they handle anyone with a disability, and that's a vocational program. And Office of Mental Health has probably at least 100 different types of programs, or program types like pros and CDTs and employment, all that kind of stuff. And actually, I'll show you some of that in a minute. But so I don't know if it doesn't necessarily mean they're certified for other services. Usually, you have to go through a whole process to being approved and everything with vested. But first, you'd have to have a disability in order to be eligible. And I don't know if you need a ticket to work.
And Access VR is across disabilities. It's not just OMH. It's physical disabilities. It's blindness. It's deafness. Any kind of a disability, Access VR works with. So they do work in concert with OMH to a degree, and in fact are working a little bit closer through the NICE system. But beyond that, they're not really related.
Now, I have about 10 questions that were emailed when people initially registered. I'll take a shot at a couple of them. Here's one. How can you teach families when to say enough is enough for the client to move on to alternate housing? Well, the concept of enabling is best learned at the 12-step programs. Al-Anon is the most fantastic 27 every day, day and night program for anything to do with enabling, which obviously is a problem that all of us families have. Now, here's another question. Resistant parents, how to educate them. They need, I'm going to repeat myself, they need to be told that in no uncertain terms that their loved one's recovery to a great degree relies on their getting informed and participating. They have a job to do. You got to tell the parents, get with it. And don't mince words either.
And to that end, if I may, Judith, we don't hesitate as family members to get involved when we hear that a loved one has cancer, or when we hear that a loved one has got some other physical health issue. But when it's a mental health issue, we often go into denial. And that is age-old, centuries-old stigma that prevents people from getting the care that they need or receiving the compassion from loved ones that is instrumental in their recovery. We need to stop hiding our head in the sand and face it head on as we would with any other health issue.
Now, here we had a question about health homes. Let me just see. How do you engage families in health homes? Now, a health home is an interdisciplinary medical plus mental health team for people with high needs. And I looked it up, one of the 6 services the health home offers is, quote, patient and family support. So, unquote, you need to understand how that term is defined by them and then ask for it. All right? Now, here somebody asked, school social workers and nurses need to be better equipped to help. Well, NAMI and Families Together, they all will give you a really nice learning curve, how to advocate for better services. There are these nonprofits that were started, in NAMI's case, for and by families of severely mentally ill, and now our local affiliate has more consumers than families. But They have great courses. They're free. I recommend them highly. Now, let's see. Here's a question. Sibling involvement as parents aging reduces their own involvement. Okay, I think you're talking about siblings having to take care of families who are battling with mental illness. There's a fantastic program that NAMI runs. It's called Daughters and Sons of Parents with Mental Illness Support Group. And I've been to many of those. They're terrific. You can go to it at NAMI's New York City Metro affiliate headquarters. And I can give you a phone number, 212-684-3264. And they can make sure that you go to this terrific support group.
And if you live outside of the Metro New York area, check with your local NAMI chapter to see if they have a similar program.
Now, here's a question. Resistance to medication, which seems to come from a children's center. I don't know what to say except if you can find out what their long-term goal is, or what is it that matters to them, and then say, oh, you know, this pill will help you get that. Maybe you can cajole them into short-term discomfort for more long-term reward. But I'm not an expert on that subject, but I offer that one idea. Now, here's another question. What are the new strategies to use to engage families who believe issues belong solely to the child? Well, here we go again. These families have to know that their loved one's recovery depends on them getting informed, participating, that only half the job is done by the medication. There's a whole other half of the job, building a life and rehabilitating, that is very much up to the family member to help organize.
And beyond that, in more modern day research and practice, we have found that children's behaviors that they're displaying or experiencing are not what they were considered to be years ago, just bad behavior or bad parenting. They are results of true issues that need to be addressed. So it's not a matter of the child owning their behaviors as much as there's a symptom, or they're a symptom of an underlying issue.
Yep, you got to look deeper. Now here's a question. How do you get families transported after work when transportation is a big issue? You know, this is from someone from a hospital. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is Skype, which, can you get that many multiple people on Skype?
I don't know.
I've heard, you know, Skype is still a little on the crude side, but that is really a big issue.
And it can be a larger issue in more rural settings. Transportation is probably one of the biggest issues that we hear from people who live outside of an area that has a metro transportation system.
Yeah, now one of the things that the Office of Mental Health does do, and one of the things that is pretty high on the list nationally, is something called telemedicine. So we use telepsychiatry at the Office of Mental Health, and I don't have the web page available quickly, but you do have the ability to contact the Office of Mental Health, and I think the acronym is NYSCAT. So if you go to the Office of Mental Health website, type that in. It's probably, I think, under Children and Families, and you can ask for a consult. In some of our more rural counties, there's no child psychiatrist, or there's someone who's not an expert on the particular issues, and we want to make sure that we offer that to folks. So that is a free service that the Office of Mental Health does provide.
All right, here's another one from who asked about PROS regulations on family psychoeducation. Well, from what I understand, the intensive rehabilitation portion of the comprehensive PROS reimburses for family education and support. That's what I understand. I don't know if anybody knows more about the regs than I do, but ask for it. And here's another one. How do we get a family member involved in treatment planning who feels treatment isn't necessary? Well, motivational interviewing is what I learned from Javier Amador LEAP. You listen, you empathize, you agree, you partner. Basically, you have to identify and show how the treatment will be helped by their participation and how absolutely crucial it is. And that's the only thing I can, but let me focus on who feels treatment isn't necessary. And now that's tricky. They feel the treatment's not necessary. Well, how do they think the person's going to get better?
Well, it kind of depends. I would say it kind of depends about like the stage of the change.
Mm-hmm.
If the person is in a pre-contemplative place where this isn't the problem, and it's not troubling them, then, and they don't feel treatment is necessary, then they're not going to go.
Yeah,
And it's probably going to take what they call in the substance abuse world a bottoming out
that's right.
before the person is ready or sees any value in treatment. That would be, I'm generalizing, of course, but that would be my advice.
And then the last question that was emailed in, the power of family member to make a phone call that result in family member hospitalization. Well, the power of family, in other words, do they have the power? They have the power. If the person is of harm to themselves and others, usually that's the criteria. And in the hospital, the psychiatrists also have something called 2PC. 2 PCs. If 2 psychiatrists feel that person still has to stay in the hospital, they can keep them in. Nothing's perfect, but hospitalization is a structure to get a treatment plan going, and sometimes it's a necessary evil. And yes, you do have the power to do that if you feel that person is going to possibly harm themselves or somebody else.
And we know that someone in crisis or someone who is having an issue fears their family member hospitalizing them because they will be trapped. Well, I can tell you from personal experience, the thought of hospitalizing a loved one is a last resort thought. It's because they have exhausted all of their options, all of their ideas on how to get their loved one help. And it's not something that is usually arrived at very easily. It's an acceptance that an individual has to do themselves to say, okay, this is where I need to turn. We also know that sometimes family intervention, where they do have to make that decision, can fracture a relationship with their loved one. But knowing that that in itself may help bring some relief to their loved one's symptoms necessitates making that call.
We do have a couple more questions that have come in. So the next question is, what strategies have been most successful in getting mental health staff to actually adopt the recommended practices? Awareness alone of the advantages of family participation doesn't seem to be sufficient.
Well, this is what the Family Institute for Education, Practice, and Research is an expert on. I can give you their phone number, perhaps, or you can.
Is that the one in Rochester?
Yes.
Okay.
They've been working for a decade, thanks to OMH's support. And if you want information about how to contact them, I have an email address, or you could just Google the Institute for Education, Practice, and Research, and they will share with you the considerable amount of information they have on that subject.
Yeah, what I will do is also is, if you don't mind, I'll take that email address because it's rather cumbersome to give out email addresses.
It is.
So I'll include that in a follow-up email for everyone as well, so they'll have that. The next question. Oh, and actually, if I can just add to that a little bit. One of the things that we've done at the Office of Mental Health is our Director of Facilities, Jane Van Bramer. She has instituted a new program with the governing bodies. So each facility, so when I say facility, I mean psychiatric center, so like Pilgrim or Creedmoor or Manhattan Psych Center, and all of our psych centers that are state operated. She has insisted that peers and family representatives be on the governing bodies, and that is in addition to Board of Visitors. It's not meant to replace or have the Board of Visitors person take on a dual role. So what we've been doing over the last 6 months or so is we've been orientating the peers and families about the governing body, the different things that are going on within the hospital and how they can be helpful to bring that peer and family perspective to the policymaking board of the hospital. So, so that's one thing that we've instituted. Next question. We tried implementing a bridging program, support group program with Better Days Ahead, that's the name of the program, for parents, families, guardians of hospitalized children and adolescents. Despite offering a meal and hours for working parents and different strategies to engage families, we still had a low rate of attendance. Our thought is parents are too stressed and overwhelmed at the time to engage. Can you please comment and or make suggestions to help us make this program successful?
Well, again, the Family Institute is dealing with that difficulty. My point of view is catch them early when they first walk through the door of the first hospitalization and throw paper at them. That's about, I would be happier if the paper wasn't just thrown, but somebody sat down and gave them 15 minutes. But that could be a turning point for a lot of families.
Yeah, and I like what you say about giving the family a role, and a job to do in the person's recovery. I think that's extremely important because it focuses the family into, and gives them something tangible that they can do to be helpful. And again, this is a messy process. It's a long process. So it's, I think the families need to understand as well. But at least it gives them something to focus on so they can be helpful. And I think you're right. Engaging as soon as possible is good.
Well, and I do think that parents pick up on the fact that a lot of providers are a little condescending to them, which both hurts them and makes them angry.
Now we are going to, one of the good things about setting up this webinar is it sparked a conversation at ONH with people from Children and Family Services. And we're going to set up in the fall, so probably October, September, November, somewhere around there. We'll set up a webinar with folks for children and families, children and adolescents. So that target audience will be addressed at that webinar. So please stay on our listserv, the person who asked this question and the other person who asked a question about children, please attend that one.
But also bear in mind that all of the resources in the Family Survival Handbook are applicable across the boards, regardless of the age of the individual we're speaking of. The help sheets, the information gathering sheets, they're all good all the way across. And the other thing that we're doing at the Office of Mental Health to be helpful is our office has taken over the customer relations line, so or the complaints line, if you will. And oftentimes we do get calls from families who are experiencing the mental health system for the very first time. And one of the very first things that we do, and we've been told to do, is to refer them to the family toolkit here and to provide that for them. So we'll send that off to them and help them get connected to other people who've been there, done that, to their peers, so they can help, so they can learn from their peers and they don't have to reinvent the wheel. There was one thing, and I know Judith likes to make sure she gets things correct, especially when it comes to things like spelling. But there was one thing I wanted to clarify and maybe challenge a little bit here. So I hope you don't mind, but it's important for me. Is this the fourth bullet down where we talk about severe mental illness and becoming symptom-free over time? I know that we talk about
Courtney
recovery.
Harding.
Yes.
Harding.
Yes. Courtney Harding is an awesome study, and it's been replicated several times throughout the United States and throughout the world. I don't know if symptom-free was the terminology that was used. Recovery is, but recovery is not a cure. And most people that I've worked with or I met, and myself included, we don't become symptom-free, although it may look that way. We still have symptoms, but we learn how to adapt, adjust, plan,
Right.
We get, reasonable accommodations. And the only reason I wanted to just,
I don't disagree with your point.
okay, I'm sorry, the only reason I
But
wanted to highlight
I
it.
did interview Courtney myself, and I am going to look up, because I thought I used her words, but I'll look at it. But your point is very well taken.
Yeah, it may be true. I worry because I know that I've heard it many times from providers that you can't go back to work until you're symptom free. How can you work unless you're symptom free? And you'll never be symptom free.
No.
You got to go back to work. Having a reason to do something actually increases your chances for recovery. Having a reason to take a shower, having a reason to take medications that will help you stay focused on your job. I mean, so I didn't want people to
No, we
misinterpret
can't
it.
overpromise, and
Right.
absolutely, that's unfair, and it's cruel to do.
We have a question here. Is there a fee or cost to refer to Judith?
I have a very, very modest fee, because I'm just one of you, so I'll settle with you on that.
And is that
And I
on
don't
a
always-
case-by-case basis?
Yeah, so I don't always charge either.
All right, so I'm changing the presentation over to myself. We have no more questions. And I just wanted to highlight a few things here. So some further resources for people who are interested. NAMI New York State is one of the agencies that is here in New York State. It's a national organization, but this is our New York State webpage. And there's plenty of resources there. We also have the Mental Health Association in New York State. They have a listserv as well, and they send out some really remarkable things on that to help people stay aware of pending legislation and events that are happening. And
They also-
you can see the community calendars coming up.
They also have some wonderful trainings that they do as well.
And it's called, by another name, by every other state but ours.
What's it called in other states?
No, not every other,
Mental
but
Health
other
America.
other
Oh,
states
yeah.
is Mental Health America.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't get confused, it's the same place.
And then I'm also highlighting here the Office of Mental Health, our webpage. And I know there's a little bit of a lag, and I apologize because I know this is going to seem kind of jumpy for folks. But under where it said find a program, I clicked on that, and that will bring you to a search engine. And this search engine, this listing of folks or of programs is actually updated very regularly. It is tied to people's funding, actually. So it's part of our internal database that we've made public. So these are all programs that the Office of Mental Health either funds or licenses. And if you click on program definitions, these are all the different types of programs that we have. But what I really wanted to show people was, and you'll have to excuse me because my control panel is blocking where I wanted to go. So is under advanced search. What is really cool, and it's fairly recent that we did this, is we put in a recipient run tab. Now when we say recipient run, we mean programs that have a board that is 51% or more of peers and or families. So we also include families in here as well. So family run or recipient run. And the preponderance of the staff are either families or recipients. So if you wanted to find some recipient/family run programs, you would just toggle yes. You can go to your whatever region or county that you wanted to look at, and you can pick whatever type of program that you're looking for. So I'm going to leave those actually blank, and I'll just click go. And then you can see these are all the peer and family run programs. Hands Across Long Island, Baltic Street, I'm not trying to promote any particular one, but these are all through our whole state. So some people would prefer to utilize programs that have a peer and recipient component to it. So I wanted to share that with folks. All right. Let me just double check and see if there are any other questions here. And so no more questions. So with that, I want to thank Judith for her excellent presentation today.
You're welcome.
I want to thank Tom for joining us as well and chipping in his knowledge. And I want to let people know that we do not have a webinar in July. Our next webinar will be in August, and I will get that information out to folks. I don't have anything set up yet, so some of the topics that we're looking at are, as I said before, children and family services. We're also looking, and I'm surprised we haven't done this, is trauma-informed care. So we're going to do something on trauma. We are going to do something on spirituality, and because we do something on spirituality every year, and that is a very well-attended training. And we're also looking to do something on CPRPs to help people become more aware of that opportunity, and that stands for Certified Psychiatric Rehabilitation Professional. And that's an excellent certification to get. It's sort of, I would say, it's analogous to a CASAC in the substance abuse world. So a CPRP is similar to a CASAC, but in the mental health world. And with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I had great questions. I really appreciate you coming, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, and don't forget, there will be a short survey that will pop up, and if you could just please take the time to fill that out, that would be great.
Helps us improve in future webinars.
Thank you.